Hello and welcome to SwiftUI video. My name is David Thorne. Now, at one point, you've probably come across some issues with the async image, such as like flickering during scrolling, loading delays, location mechanism, memory management, error handling, and just generally it's horrible. You know, you've got loading images here, and then you come back and it's flickering around and so on. It's not something that you want to rely upon whatsoever, and I'm not going to start hacking it to do it. So the best option is to absolutely get rid of it. All right, now you could add a cache to this using the URL cache, but it's not going to make it any better, because yes, the images are still going to get cached, but that doesn't mean to say that AsyncImage can actually deal with it very well. And I don't like it at all. So as far as I'm concerned, we can just get rid of it. So now we've got rid of it, the question you're going to be asking me is, what do we use instead? Well, you're going to have to make something yourself, but the knowledge that you get from understanding where the problems are in AsyncImage and knowing how to fix it and resolve it is super fundamental, and it's actually quite easy to do. So let's just start by creating our own image view. And this photo from Unsplashed has then URLs, and then we're just going to say regular and so on. So this image view that we're going to create now, so let's just come to our project and create a UI, SwiftUI view, and we're going to call it image view. And this is going to be a custom image view here, and we will need combine, so we're going to import it, and we don't need anything else, right? Because it's going to be completely generic, or it's going to be completely independent from everything else. So it just needs to know about a URL, and that is it. All right, and let's just add this in here, and let's just quickly put, I've just randomly got an image here, just put this in here for the sake of having a optional URL. Obviously nothing that's going to show up right now, because let's just go back to here and make sure we can get the other one running, and we just give it a default initializer, and now we can remove this there, and now everything should be working hunky-dory once again, and we get hello world here. Right, so the aim is to be able to have an image here, and this is then going to take a UI image in this instance. Now we could use NS image as well, but for this example we're going to be using UI image rather than NS image, but it's exactly the same thing, just using the different types. So here we're going to write this code backwards, right? And we're going to say if let UI image is equal to, we need some form of resource, and we'll just say view model resource. Then we're going to display this image. Else we're going to come here and we're going to display a progress view here, and we're just going to put a label inside of it saying loading ... Obviously we don't have this view model, so let's come straight here and let's create a view model, and we'll just say the view model here, and we'll just initialize this as well up here. And now we're going to come and create this view model, because we've got to have some way of downloading this image. So with that said, we need to have our resource that we've just talked about down here, and this resource is going to be in this situation going to be an image, a UI image. All right, so but then we need some way of downloading this image, so we're just going to come here and say give me an optional URL. Right, this is the code that we want to write. Now everything is working perfectly fine once again. Okay, so we need some way of loading this URL. Well, we have our view model up here, which is all well and good, and when the view displays, we want to then start downloading this image. Well, we can come here straight away and say start loading the URL, right? So I'm just going to interrupt quickly. Line 21 needs to change, and we're going to change it shortly throughout the code, but just if any keen developers have suddenly seen that this is going to be a bug, it will be a bug, but we'll change it in a minute. All right, and so we call upon creation this image view, we can start loading it to populate this published, because the displaying of the image could take a little bit longer, but ultimately, as long as this view model has this image already and it's loaded this image already, then it can use it in the future when displayed. Okay, so now we have this load. Obviously, if we don't have a URL here, then we're not going to use it. So we can just say if let URL, and we continue from there. Nothing changes, right? So now we have this this here. We want a way of downloading this image. Well, we know how to do that. We can just say session URL session shared. Now, we could use that session shared, but what we want is to be able to have our own session here, because we want to use caching as well. All right, and we want to basically use every tool that we have available to us, and just by using the standard the shared URL session is not going to help us, all right, because we're going to have to create it ourselves. So we come here and we create our session, and on this session we want to create and add our URL cache now. And as you can see, this URL cache needs a memory capacity and also a disk capacity. We could add a path to that disk capacity, but we're not going to for this example. All right, so we're going to make the disk capacity to be 100 megabytes, and we're going to make the memory capacity be 100 megabytes too. Well, we want to be able to save this because we want to be able to use it multiple times. So let's just pop this up into let's make it a stored property instead, and we can come down here and just use the cache instead. So every single time we want to use this session, we can come down here and use the session, or we can create a session every single time. It doesn't matter. And now we can come here and use the request cache policy, and here we're going to say return cache else load all the time. All right, with that said, we now can use the data task publisher for request, and we can come here and create a request now, and we say URL request with the URL. And once again on the URL, we can use the cache policy and say return cache else load once again. And now we have that inside of our publisher. We're going to need a cancelable because we're going to need to save this somewhere. So let's think about using that in a second. And let's just say sync here, and we'll use completion and switch Swift. We don't really care about the finished part of it, but we do care about the failure, just for the sake of knowing that we got a failure. And then this is the resource here. So let's come back to here and say case. Sorry, my mistake here. Case failure, and we'll just print error here and default break. It's just for us to understand right now, but the error is not really too pertinent for us to understand. Let's come and store this in a cancelable and then we'll say self.resource is equal to resource. And at this one point in time, you can't assign this tuple of data and URL response to the UI image because we can't do that. However, we want to receive on the run loop main. We're going backwards here. We're doing all the important stuff first, all right? And now we're going to say try map. And this is where we're going to allow to have the data and response, because the most important thing that we want to check is, do we actually have a response, right? And is it an HTTP is it an HTTP response, and did we get status code of 200? Otherwise, we just don't care about checking it any further because it's not worthy. So if HTTP status code is equal to 200, else we can just return nil from here. So we're happy to have an optional URL image. Now that we've got this status code and we know it's 200, we can check the data now, because if the data is empty, well, we don't want to use that. So we can just come here and return nil as well. We could put that in this one. We could just put this in here as well if we wanted, but just to keep it nice and clear that we're checking the data after this. The next thing we want to do is now return a UI image with the data, all right? And if this UI image doesn't like this data, then it's going to be nil anyway, because it's a nil. You can see it's already an optional a convenience constructor, all right? So now our code is happy, all right? And the only thing left to do really here is we should be working right now. Load URL. We call in the load URL within the init. We get the resource UI image, and we get the image here. And we need to redo this. And we should have an image right now. Okay. Our mistake is that we're not initiating this view model with a state object. Okay, so we come here and we can say view model here and view model there. And now we can say underscore view model is equal to state object view model. And now we can, state object, my mistake. We can now say a state object here. We get rid of this and we run this, and we should now have an image. There we go. All right, so that was the only mistake that it was making, was not, yeah, you can't instantiate a state object every single time the view is created, because that would mean that you are making a new view. You're making a new view model every single time. You want to persist it over image views being shown and removed. Okay, so that was just a mistake here. So once we do have this, we can see that we have our image displayed. All right, nice and easy. And so now as we go through, you see we have all of our images, and they load down the bottom as you go through, nice and easy. All right, and so let's now come to our image view, and inside of our image we'll say resizable, and then scale to fill, or let's say fits here. Let's have a look at the content view once again. And now when we scroll, we should not get any flickering anymore, even though, yeah, when we come back, we get all the images. And let's put it in into a simulator to see whether we get any of these problems. And let's just get rid of that breakpoint, and let's keep scrolling it. And we don't get any flickering anymore. We don't get any flickering. And because we have our own cache here, we can check also if prior to doing the session, we can say here, if let cache response is equal to the cache, and we say cache response, and then we use the request, we can say return here, right? And we can say here resource is equal to then the cache resource data. We don't want the data here. We just want to say UI image and then plop that in there instead, which means that if we now get rid of these and we run this once again, you should notice that we come here straight away, all right? And we're using the cache from now on. So we're not doing any network requests anymore. And you can see here, network 0 kilobytes, all right? And it's not budging. So we're now just loading these images, and SwiftUI stroke UIKit iOS is super fast about accessing the disk when it comes down to images, all right? Never keep images in memory, all right? Never keep that data in memory. Just put it straight to disk, because it's way faster with an SSD drive as well. Swift is amazing at loading stuff from the disk, all right? And as you can see here, no flickering whatsoever. So with that said, I hope that you've got something out this video. Now, if you are wanting to listen a little bit further in the video to show you how you can make this view model even more flexible to use for the likes of AppKit and so on, then keep watching. But otherwise, let me just scroll this out, and so you can have a look at, scroll this out so you can have a look at the whole code instead. And you can see that we obviously can extract this code to another file as well, another extension, etc., etc. But it's just the code. It's just a simple code. It fits on the screen as well. Approximately, you could put this session up to the top. You could do a whole bunch of other things to it. So how can we make this view model more generic? Because right now we're using we're using UIKit stroke SwiftUI. Well, we know we're using SwiftUI, but under the hood we're accessing the UIKit component elements here control, view, and so on. So we want to be able to extract this out, and we extract it out to the view model instead. And here we're just going to say resource, right? And then we just say a resource in here. Obviously, this doesn't like it anymore. So what you've got to do, this is where the clever bit comes. You've got to make an initializer, and we're going to call this then a resource mapper here, and we're going to return an optional resource here instead, and we're going to pass it a data, so we can do the mapping from outside, and then we just got to copy this here to be private var resource mapper, and plop it in there. And then we just say resource mapper is equal to resource mapper. And now inside of here, rather than saying UI image, we just say self.resource mapper, and we say cache response data. And that deals with this here. We now need to turn around to this try map and say that it's going to return a resource map. And once again, we can take this resource mapper and use it here, and just use data. We have to add self to this as well. So that now extracts the whole problem to resource, but we come down to our view model now, and the generic parameter resource cannot be inferred. Well, we can take this out now even further to the image view itself, and here we can say image type up here, and we'll say this has to be a view instead, right? And so from here, we can come to our view model here instead. And now we just want the mapper as well. Right, well, in here, we can now extract this completion handler, or this mapper here, let's call it, this mapper here, to say we want a image type. And we want an image type here. And this is going to receive data, right? And inside of here now, we can just say that we want an image, right? And it's going to take a UI image, and then we're going to say UI image and data, and then $0, and yeah, we know that we've got something here. Cannot convert to image type. Okay, my mistake, sorry. We need to say just here mapper, and then we take $0 there. So we then just need to add then the generic type up here. Down here with inside of our image, here we can turn around instead and say mapper. We have the resource is then an image type, right? What we can have here instead, we just got to call the UI image, which now takes our problem all the way down to the image view instead now, which means we can just make a closure here and say image, and this is where we want to say UI image, and then say UI image, and this is then say data, and this is then $0, and we know that we've got a data there. Non-escaping, sorry, then we need to have this like that there. And when we come back to our canvas, we should all be working once again. Mapper is there, and this is then, we can come back to our image view, and we can copy this like that there. And everything should be working once again, once it's all loaded. And as it is, as you can see, it is. And we can come here and say resizable, and then scale to fit. Happy days. And it's all working once again. All right. So now what we've done here is we've said, hey, the image view, and we've got full control over displaying the image now as well. And this is kind of like the async image, but now we know that one, this data here has been cached. Two, we can choose between showing an NS image or a UI image. We've got full control over the image itself too. So what we've done now, and we've got full function, full scalability and reusability and also extendability from the image view to add any of the properties that we want, any manipulation that we want through this image view. And you only have to write it once. So yeah, with that said, there's a whole bunch of things that you could extract from here. You could extract the progress view to add it also as a view builder here to be able to add any types of views that you want. You could add a whole bunch of things to it. You don't necessarily have to be stuck with using the async image. You didn't need to bring this closure in, but I just wanted to add it to show you that we could extract it even further to be able to support NSImage or UI image as well. And if you wanted to do that, you would come here and say can support UI kit, for example, here, and then we'd just come under here and say else if can support app kits here, and then we'll just say else and then say end if here, and this might just be an empty view, and then we can come down here and just say NSImage, and this is then NSImage, and it works exactly the same thing. We'd have to change it over to Mac. This project wasn't created for Mac, but this is how you could use an image view and have it work on AppKit and also UKit underneath SwiftUI. And because we're using SwiftUI, SwiftUI is already taking care of all of that multi-platform information. With that said, I hope that you've got something out of this video. I hope you like this one video. I hope you now understand why you don't need to use AsyncImage. If you're creating a project, create this view once, stick it in a library using Swift Package Manager, and then literally just import it. Just like you see, I've imported my Unsplashed API package that I created, so I don't have to keep rewriting this information time and time again. With that said, thank you very much for watching. If you've got any questions, feedback or concerns, then as always, let's start a conversation in the comment section down below. With that said, thanks very much for watching. My name's David Thorne. Ciao, ciao, and goodbye.